Entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. I'm your host, Paul Shaughnessy, here to break, can't believe I'm even saying this, UFC Utica. I'm here with Cody Saftic, obviously. Utica, town of like 65,000 people in upstate New York, smack dab in the middle of Albany. Shouts to Chris Cash for telling us the right pronunciation of that. And Syracuse. What the fuck are they doing here?
Yeah, it is straight up upstate New York, which is, I've been there many times and generally a good time. But just to give you an idea of how little cares are being given about this card right now, we don't even have a director right now. Paul Shaughnessy is switching the show himself manually. I feel like I'm having a conversation with a disc jockey here. Nonetheless.
You know what also means? I can tap the damn desk as much as I want, because Pat is not here.
There's
Who's going to tell me not to tap the damn desk? I'll try not to tap the desk.
So if the show doesn't look quite as good as it does, it doesn't sound quite as good as it does, two-man operation. We're like that band Death from Above 1979, doing all the jobs ourselves, Paul. So again, I mean, I think it's a repeated theme at this point that every week it doesn't seem like these are the strongest cards, but well match made, fun fights, and Friday, so perfect. Looking forward to it.
Well, let's jump right into the action. We move to the bantamweight division. We've got Jimmy Rivera taking on Marlon Moraes. Jimmy Rivera is 8,200. Moraes is 8,000. 115 on the betting line, minus 105. It's a straight pick 'em across the board. And honestly, this is like maybe one of the fights that I've thought about. The whole week I've thought about just like Rivera, he never really looks tired. He's got good volume. He's been a complete stud. Kind of, we've been calling him the dark horse of this division for ages now. But then when you kind of start to think about it, it's just like, well, who's actually the guy in this situation that's been on the big stage? Has been in, I know the big stage, some people may say, oh, World Series of Fighting wasn't the big stage. It's like they had Anthony Rumble Johnson and Arlovsky. Like, those were big cards, and people were tuning in. It was on NBC Sports, and they were filling out of arenas. Marlon Moraes was on all of these things, and he was going 5 rounds already. So I honestly don't really know. Like, usually I would love to have like, oh, I know this guy's going to win this fight. I think it's going to be a very, very close technical striking match between the two of them. You know, like, I don't know who's the better striker, to be perfectly honest. I would think that Rivera would probably have like the wrestling advantage. But is he able to take him down?
Does he want to take him down?
Honestly, these guys are complete, well-rounded martial artists. It's a pick'em for a reason. I don't know if you need to play it on DraftKings. 5 rounds. The
Great
winner,
value, either guy.
The guy who wins, if you're taking that, the guy probably scores above 80 points or whatever in 5 rounds of technical striking affair where there's, you know, both guys are not afraid of throwing some action, right? Like, Marlon Moraes has been on a lot of wars. It's a tough one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this fight, to be perfectly honest. I hate to start out the show that way, but that's kind of my take.
No, hey, listen, it's another close fight. I mean, it's similar in the sense of last week's main event with Darren Till versus Stephen Thompson. Both guys have great styles. It's probably going to be a stand-up battle. It's going to be a close fight. Who's going to get the nod? I don't know. Then you watch the fight, and the way it plays out is exactly it. It's hard to score these rounds. Some people think Thompson won. Some people thought Till won. I personally thought Thompson edged him out, but I wasn't screaming robbery afterwards. It was a close fight. This is another one of those 5-rounders that could be exactly that. I mean, yeah, Jimmy Rivera is a legit striker, but coming in at, 5'4" with a tiny little reach on him, sometimes it feels like he fails to hit his target. Meanwhile, he's actually very elusive. He's kind of hard to hit back. I feel like he's had some troubles in the past dealing with some just taller fighters. The Yuri Alcantara fight, he arguably lost a round in that. His last fight against Thomas Almeida, he lost a round in that. Taller guys with longer reaches can get to him, but even though Marlon Moraes is 2 inches taller, he's 5'6". He's not one of the taller guys that he's fought. He shouldn't have that problem. He actually has a 1-inch reach advantage over Marlon Moraes, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. I feel like Marlon Moraes is the sharper, technical, more technical striker, but they're both great strikers. They're both going to hit each other, and Jimmy Rivera's probably got the better chin. 1 professional loss in his career. That came by split decision a long time ago, and he had lost to on the Ultimate Fighter with this versus Dennis Bermudez a long time ago at 145 pounds. What I'm saying is that at 29 years old, he's got to be in the peak of his life. He hasn't had a whole bunch of wear and tear. He hasn't been damaged up. He's coming into this first 5 round of his fight. But you and I talk about it all the time. just because we haven't seen the guy go 5 rounds, but he's looked so good during 3 rounds that all indications would be he could probably push that pace.
It's like when people were saying that about Khabib, and it's just like, well, when he gets to at the end of round 3, he's still dominating, running rickshaw over top of his opponent. Well, I don't know if you can say that this guy can't go 5 rounds because he hasn't been. It's just like, well, I have to imagine that in round 4, he's going to look maybe a slightly more tired version of what we saw in round 3. And if they weren't really all that tired, then they're probably good to go.
Yeah, and the flip side to that is that we have seen Marlon Moraes go 5 rounds, but did we need to see him? Like, he went 5 rounds against Josh Reddinghouse. That should have been a 3-round fight. He went 5 hard rounds at Josh Hill, in which the first round he got completely busted up, had his nose broken. Coming to the UFC, the fight against Rafael Sunsao, rather. He's taking damage. He always kind of takes a little bit of damage. And as of late, his fights are close, man. I mean, the Sunsao fight is super close. Could have gone either way. His fight with John Dodson, super close. Could have gone either way. And then, yes, he blasts Aljamain Sterling with the knee so early in that fight. We don't really know how it would have progressed. But I completely have hats off to this guy. He's an amazing striker. He seems to be very good on the ground. His wrestling, he spent a lot of time working. But at 30 years old, I almost feel like he's starting to get a little bit shop-worn. I mean, yes, he's still a top guy in the division. This is going to be a very exciting fight. But over the course of 5 rounds, I feel like Jimmy's just got a little bit more to him. He's going to have a better chance of withstanding those blows over a prolonged period of time and keep fighting back. And again, even though the fight's in New York, Marlon Moraes is actually a New Yorker. Like, he lives full-time in New York. He trains full-time in New York. Jimmy Rivera's from New Jersey. I feel like the crowd's still going to be behind the American boy, who's really not that far away. And those cheers, the cheers that you get, the support that you get, just like to take it back to last week's main event. Maybe sometimes that's all you need in a close fight. So I feel like I want to take Jimmy Rivera. I think for $8,200, he's a good play, especially on a cash game selection where you can get 5 rounds. I'd love to see him mix it up with some takedowns to score more points, but I don't necessarily see that happening. It's going to be hard to take down Marlon Moraes. But I also feel like this is going to be the kind of thing that a lot of people are going to stack in cash game situation. You can have Marlon Moraes for $8,000, Jimmy Rivera for $8,200. Whoever wins is going to pay off their worth. The other guy's going to have 5 rounds, mostly consists of striking. And if the fight does go to the ground, the other guy's just going to pop back up. Like, Marlon Moraes could get a takedown. He took down John Dodson, but he can't hold down John Dodson. Flip side to that, Jimmy Rivera, occasionally he'll go for the takedown, but he's not like he's a ground specialist. Ultimately, the fight's going to get back up. So give me the lifelong Tiger Schulman mixed martial artist in Jimmy Rivera to pull off the victory.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. That's kind of how I've been leaning all week, is Rivera, but the little voice in the back of your head about like the 5 rounds and all of that type of stuff kind of was popping in there. But I've kind of wanted Rivera. It's the fact that the line has basically just stayed stagnant the whole week. That kind of, and I see more people kind of leaning towards Rivera. It seems almost trappy, but I am on. I like Rivera. I think you might as well just bet heads or tails at the Super Bowl, though. I think it is actually a pretty close fight.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Let's move on. We got Gregor Gillespie taking on Vince from Hell Pichel. 9,500 for Gillespie, most expensive guy in the card. Pichel is 6,700, minus 475 on the betting line for Gillespie, plus 380 Pichel. Pichel's been a money-making machine for me over the years.
That is very true. Pichel has done you good.
I really liked him.
He has never done you dirty.
Never done me dirty. Well, I'm sorry, but I've been saying it for a long time. Gillespie's going to be a problem for this division for a long time. And I like Pichel, 11-1. He's a really tough, gritty guy. Lots of his fights are super close. You can't say the same for Gillespie. Gillespie's kind of came into the UFC and just run rickshaw over top of everybody. And I think if he has to take it down to the ground here, he will take it down to the ground. His hands, we've seen the improvements.
Definitely, yeah.
To the point that like he's able to put guys away on the feet. He gets it to the ground. All of a sudden, this guy's got some passing guard and classic like wrestler type of submissions. This guy's already a master of all of it. This guy's like a world-class wrestler. I have even went on record to say that this is a guy that I am fearful of taking on Khabib at some point.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that would go in Khabib's direction is the size. I think the size would be a big advantage, but yeah, Gregor Gillespie is the truth. And I understand why people are going, plus 400, you shouldn't be laying this. You might as well just bet the knockout prop because Gregor's not losing this by decision. We're in New York. And this guy, other people go, oh, well, like 9,500, super expensive. It's just like, you look, every single fight that this guy's had in the UFC, he's what, 4-0 in the UFC now?
Yeah.
It's like 107, 110, 128, 135. It's just like, if Gillespie puts up a performance like we've seen in all of his performances, you're going to need him on this card to win, probably even in cash. People are probably going to play him cash because, like, it's just a guaranteed 100 points almost all the time. So I don't know if I've really sold myself or said enough about how I feel about Gillespie, but I think it's really hard to get away from him here. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a pattern that emerges here with people that Paul Shaughnessy puts his hat on, right? Khabib, Paul Shaughnessy loves Khabib. Certain style that's very hard to replicate in Khabib. Tatiana Suarez, Paul loves Tatiana Suarez. Very difficult style to replicate.
It's the most dominant
and Gregor
style
Gillespie,
in the sport.
yeah, it's the exact same thing. It's just, this guy's a phenomenal athlete. He's a 4-time D1 All-American. He's a guy that won the national title at the D1 level, widely considered to be the second guy behind Jordan Burroughs, who goes on to win Olympic gold medal, to win a gold medal at the World Championship. Gregor Gillespie is as good of a wrestler as you're going to get. That's why, yeah, he would pose Khabib problems, because if Khabib can't take him down, Khabib's got to stand, and as all the internet trolls are very quick to point out, maybe Khabib's stand is his weak spot of his game. So sky's the limit for Gillespie. He's got to get these fights together. He's got to fight increasingly better guys, because that's one thing he hasn't necessarily done. He's kind of just fought lower echelon guys and looked phenomenal against them. Vince Pichel represents perhaps a slight step up in competition, but man, the inactivity on this guy. Like, I know he's done you very good. You've picked up the last 4 victories. Who would have thunk that Vince Pichel would have going to go on a 4-fight winning streak in the UFC? But Paul did, and Paul made money on all of them. But the one fight that Paul bet against him in was him versus Khabib, where he got ragdolled around by a superior grappler, and he lost. And I feel like that's kind of the exact same setup he's getting in this fight. Gillespie probably takes him down. Gillespie's going to ragdoll him. I see a lot of love coming in from Vince Pichel because he's that perennial underdog. He's always kind of in it. He's kind of like a Brian Barberina. You count him out, but he's a gritty guy, and he's a strong guy, and he finds a way to victory. But like I said, he's not fighting exactly very good guys. He takes a long layoff due to that bicep tear, comes back against Joaquim Silva in his last fight, and I just didn't think he looked all that good against Joaquim Silva. It's 1-1 going into the third. He's got to dig deep in it. He does dig deep in it, but he's a strong physical guy, so he can kind of bully dudes around. He can pin them up against the cage. He had scored 8 takedowns against Garrett Whiteley, which, dude, it's Garrett Whiteley, but 8 takedowns is nonetheless impressive. And then his very next fight against Anthony Njokuani, I think it's the same thing. I think he scores another 8 takedowns against Njokuani, beats him pillar to post 30-27 using that physicality. That's off the shelf here. Or he's not going to be able to use that strength and physicality to either bully down a guy like Gillespie or keep the fight standing a prolonged period of time. And if they are standing, I do think he's a slightly better striker, but Gillespie's going to be faster than this guy. He's going to be a lot more dynamic than this guy. He's going to use his punches in order to set up the takedown, get the takedown, and just set up shop on him. In his last fight, I was super impressed about his ability to transition on the ground. I mean, he's not one of those old-timey wrestlers, because you know me, I like the old-timey wrestlers, that just gets to half guard and holds half guard. He's looking to pass, and he's looking to smash on you. And he's just got such great control of his opponent that wherever he wants to fight, he seems to just be able to dictate that. So I think he should score pretty good here. I don't know that he gets the finish. I know you were mentioning the inside the distance prop. Yeah, it's at home. Yeah, he's going to have the fans behind him. But like Vince Pichel is a pretty durable guy. I mean, at least...
I never actually mentioned the inside the distance prop.
Did you not mention the inside the distance? Oh,
No.
okay.
He's won his last 2 fights inside the distance.
He has won his last 2 fights inside the distance. I just think back to like the Gleico Frock fight, which yes is his debut, and yes he makes it in Brazil. Is that sometimes you can just control these guys so bad on the ground that they kind of stop putting up resistance, and you know the fight just hits a certain rhythm. The money on him, $9,500. That's super expensive. I know what you're saying, cash game. And as I was making mock lineups, I like a lot of value plays on this card that make getting Gillespie a total possibility. So I'm going to be playing him. I see that the line has been, because I know we have a mark down here at minus 475, and I see that it has been coming down somewhat significantly. People kind of do like Vince Pichel, but I'm not seeing it, man. I mean, this is a guy that's fought once in the last 3 years and looked mediocre at best, taking on a rising star of the division. So the only thing I can see going wrong is if he's spending too much time fishing, because we know Gregor Gillespie loves to fish. You know, maybe he's out of shape. But no, all jokes aside, yeah, this is a hometown effort for him. People are going to be supporting him. I feel like he's going to put on a big performance here. And Vince Pichel is just another one of those long list of guys that he's already been fighting that are just average mid-pack guys, and he tends to look really good against them. So sign me up for Gillespie.
We move to the heavyweight division. We have Walt Harris taking on Daniel Spitz. Walt Harris, 9,300 on DraftKings, 6,900 for Daniel Spitz, -300 and +250 respectively. Who do you got?
Gotta go with Walt Harris, man. Like, no disrespect to Spitz, but he is very hittable. Like, he's the kind of guy that, you know, big, tall, lumbering, 6'4", kind of stands in front of you, doesn't have great footwork despite coming from a collegiate football background. He doesn't seem like the greatest athlete. Shocked. First of all, he comes to the UFC beating Cabbage Carrera. I'm going to fight them at the distance, by the way. So it's not exactly like he had fought anybody significant prior to coming to the UFC. And then he makes it to the UFC. I don't want to say a layup, but like, this is as easy as it's going to get. They give you Mark Godbeer, who should not be winning at the UFC level. And Mark Godbeer outstrikes this guy. He beats this guy fair and square. His next fight's against Anthony Hamilton. So chinny. Anybody can beat Anthony Hamilton. And that's kind of where he's at, man.
We were here on this show saying that, listen, Spitz doesn't have any power.
Yeah.
But he's fighting Anthony Hamilton.
Of course.
He's going to knock out Anthony Hamilton.
Yeah.
That didn't work out for Adam Wieczorek, but Wiezorek's another thing altogether. That guy's cost me a whole bunch of money recently.
Fair enough. But again, we're talking about the bottom of the barrel with Spitz. He is fighting the worst guys in the division, and, you know, at best, I'm sure at 27 years old he's getting better. I'm sure coming out of Sick Jitsu with Rick Little and those guys, surely that he's going to be making improvements fight to fight. But this is heavyweight, and your inability to get your head out of the way is going to cause you big time. Walt Harris is a guy that people are very quick to point out that he doesn't have very good cardio. In his UFC debut against Jared Rosholt, he drops Rosholt. Thing is, he just gasses out. Rosholt gonna Rosholt, takes you down and just sucks the energy right out of you. He loses that fight. The fight against Shamil Abdurakhimov, he starts actually good against Abdurakhimov. Then he completely gasses. He loses that fight. So it's easy to say, geez, this guy's got a bad gas tank, but it's generally against grapplers. If you want to stand in front of him like a Chase Sherman's got a good chin. Chase Sherman's got good cardio. Walt Harris just lines this guy up and knocks him clean out. He was well on his way to winning his last fight against Mark Godbeer. Unfortunately, disqualification for booting him in the head afterwards, but he's cleanly outstriking him. He's a better athlete. He's a much faster guy. He is 34 years old, but at heavyweight, we see these guys do mature a lot later in life. He himself is a great athlete because he's a collegiate basketball player making that transition and spending the amount of time that he has at American Top Team. Yeah, he's going to be slowly coming around, but Walt Harris is the kind of guy that just a couple fights ago, he almost looks like a prospect. He's green still. He's making those improvements. Freak athlete, needs to put it all together, and Daniel Spitz represents the kind of opponent that is going to make you look good. You stand in front of this guy. That's Walt Harris's biggest path to victory is somebody stands in front of you and neglects to move their head, and you line this guy up and you hit him. And this is exactly what that's set up to be. $9,300, obviously expensive. Again, you can afford this guy if you take a couple value plays. The -300 really isn't all that bad. They're middling heavyweights, and we both know that we have a theory of middling heavyweights where you could just take the B side to this and probably get it right as much as you're going to get it, or get it wrong as much as you're going to get it right. But I feel like
that the value of a +300 or +250 is going to pay itself off. But like Spitz doesn't really. We said that he didn't have the power, and we were basically still right. It's just he was fighting Anthony Hamilton when he got that knockout. Now we're taking on Walt Harris, who doesn't have the same type of chin issues. Like Spitz.
No, cardio issues, not chin issues.
You need to find a heavyweight. When you're going to take a big underdog, a heavyweight that packs a punch.
That's true.
He doesn't have to be the most technical guy. Or he has to have some sort of dynamic. I guess Wieczorek with his jiu-jitsu has got a dynamic thing that I still don't believe in whatsoever. I'm going to be fading that guy every single time, Cody, until I get it right.
Fair enough.
But I'm with you. I think Walt Harris rules here. Let's move on down the card. We've got Jake Ellenberger taking on Ben Killaby Saunders. 8,600 for Ellenberger, -190 on the betting line. And Saunders is 7,600 and 165. Respectively. What's your take here?
I'm going to go with Ben Saunders, and that scares me because obviously both guys probably don't have a chin at this point. I do think Jake Ellenberger still packs a bigger punch. He's a little bit younger than Ben Saunders, his 33 versus Saunders' his 35. But coming off that Mike Perry knockout, which was devastating, at least he took 13 months off. At least he cleared the cobwebs, and there's probably lots of cobwebs with Jake Ellenberger because he's had his bell rung, a number of times. But Ben Saunders, man, that fight with Alan Jouban was like 5 months ago. And even though it wasn't the same type of, actually it kind of was. Like the Mike Perry knockout, Ellenberger is done. But at least it's one big elbow that puts you down. In a couple shots prior to that, sure. But it was that one big elbow. The Jouban fight, he completely beat the piss out of Ben Saunders and then empathetically knocks him clean out. So coming on short notice now, coming in against Jake Ellenberger, he's on short notice. I don't know what kind of camp he's had. I don't know that he's still got that wear and tear on his body. Here's a guy that's got, if you look at the way he's been knocked out in a number of fights, go back to his Bellator days against Douglas Lima, where he takes a clean head kick in the head. Like, I don't know where he's at. So if this is just going to be another classic war, then yeah, it's quite possible that Jake Ellenberger is going to catch Ben Saunders and he's going to knock him out. But I honestly have this bad gut feeling that Jake Ellenberger, and he doesn't throw shit no more. He doesn't want to get into these grimy type wars like he used to back in the day, because it ain't 2011 anymore. He's not the number one contender anymore. He's faltered against many level of opponents. But you look back to fights with like Tarek Saffiedine and the Rory McDonald fight, where he's just gun shy, man. He stands in front of you and he doesn't throw. The couple times that he has gone out there and says, I'll throw, save for the Matt Brown fight. This guy's 2-7 in his last 9 fights, Paul. Fighting great guys, but he's slowly fighting worse and worse guys. And he's now losing to the Mike Perrys of the world, where he should be winning those. His 2 victories in that span, I mean, Nate Marquardt, no chin, and Matt Brown, happened to hit him with the body shot. But a fight that Matt Brown was actually working his way back into and hurting this guy. So I feel like he doesn't deal properly with range. I feel like he's very hittable. And because if he does get gun shy and he stands on the outside, a guy with a longer reach will just pick away at him. And I almost feel like that's what Ben Saunders could do. Now, Ben Saunders himself lost that fight to Jouban. Also got knocked out by Peter Sabata. So I am by...
knockout was not too long ago.
No, man. I'm not saying by any stretch that I am confident in Ben Saunders, but if Jake Ellenberger almost has this perception of, hey, this guy's a good wrestler that packs a big right hand. He doesn't wrestle anymore. And if he wants to take Ben Saunders down, Ben Saunders probably almost welcomes that. Let's go to the ground. Let's play this guard game, because I'm just going to throw a rubber guard on you and try to ply you away with elbows. So now we have a stand-up battle. In a stand-up battle, if Jake Ellenberger's not the one getting off first, he's going to be getting hit coming in against Saunders, who's the longer, taller guy. And Saunders can just pick away with him with that kick game. Just keep kicking at this guy. Keep him at distance, kick at him, get some points. It probably wouldn't be the prettiest victory, but I'm hoping he doesn't go the let's get into another war route, and then Ben Saunders could pull off this fight. Now, I don't think he scores a tremendous amount unless he clips him and knocks him out. Again, possible. But the $7,600 is very intriguing to me, because if he goes out there and just, gathers up his significant strikes, gathers up a decision victory, maybe he can go for some submission attempts if Ellenberger goes for a desperation takedown or two, and maybe, just maybe, he can hurt Jake Ellenberger, who we've seen get hurt by a number of opponents in the past, especially those, if Ellenberger just got blasted in the clinch against Mike Perry, then what's he going to do against Saunders? Saunders is great in the clinch, man. He's got nasty elbow game as well. Not as much power as Perry. He's got a great knee game. He's got a good tie clinch. So maybe he clips him, maybe he hurts him. I think he could get his value at 7,600. Flip side to that, Ellenberger, 8,600. The only thing that's tempting about it is it's Ben Saunders, dude. Hit this guy once flush and he should go down. But he took a shit kicking against Jouban before he eventually went down. It's not like his chin's Anthony Hamilton's chin. Hamilton gets hit once. He goes down. Saunders gets hit a lot of times and then goes down. It's a different type of chin, and I'm hoping that Ellenberger doesn't have that drive anymore to come forward. He's not the juggernaut anymore. If he fights like the juggernaut, he can win this fight. I'm thinking those days are well behind him, and I'm going to reluctantly go with Ben Saunders to get the underdog victory.
Yeah, well, somebody at the UFC headquarters really likes Jake Ellenberger.
He begged for his job and got it back.
Let's be honest, yeah. He would have been cut. He's on a 4-fight losing streak at this point.
2-7 in his last 9 fights.
And he's probably getting paid pretty well. And nobody really, nobody's batting down the doors to try to get Jake Ellenberger on a card anymore. Like, he was a intriguing prospect at one point, and his durability issues has basically caused them to revert back to the mean, right? But I'm leaning Ellenberger. I could see it being a stinker, and this is the type of fight that everyone goes, oh, 2 guys are really chin. Someone's getting knocked out.
Who've had exciting fights.
And it's very possible that happens, but don't be surprised if this is like the chalk bomb on your DFS slate. That one of these guys, that both of these guys just kind of go out there and and it's very tentative the whole way, because once you get that chin checked too many times, we see these guys come out and they just stay 5-6 feet away from each other.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to get hit.
It's a feeling out process for the first 4 minutes, and And it's not DraftKings gold, that's for sure.
If I can just say a quick thing really quick. Shaughnessy Carter used to be one of my absolute favorite fighters. I love Shaughnessy Carter. So last year I got to hang out with Shaughnessy for the weekend. He's fighting Joe Riggs of all people, my favorite fighter, up in Lethbridge. We had to drive from the Calgary airport together to Medicine Hat. So it was like 3-hour drive. And I remember somebody in the car tells Shaughnessy, because Shaughnessy at this point is like in his mid-40s. He is on a bad streak. He is not the Shaughnessy of old. He's very punch drunk. He's slow. He's lethargic. The guy used to fight at 170 pounds. Now he struggles to make catch weights of 195. Like, it's over. But somebody in the car says to Shaughnessy, they said, Shaughnessy, how do you know when it's over? Like, how do you know when it's done? And then Shaughnessy says, you know it's done when it starts to hurt. When you get in there and the punches, you start to feel them and it starts to hurt you. Like, you're a young guy, you get out there, like, what's a punch in the face? They take it like nothing. They march forward. Ellenberger used to do that. But way back in the day, Martin Kampmann chin checks this guy and knocks him out. His fight with Diego Sanchez, which I think is the last UFC main event to only be a 3-rounder. He's fucking lucky it was only 3 rounds because he gassed hard in the 3rd round and Sanchez is coming on, putting it on him. He ends up winning a 29-20 because he wins the first 2. But durability have always been issues for him. But getting back to what Shaughnessy said, you know it's over when it starts to hurt. Well, I feel like with Jake Ellenberger, it hurts, man. Yeah, it's a fight. I know people are going to be sitting at home thinking, Cody sounds like an idiot right now. It's a fight. It's going to hurt. But what I mean is you get to a point where you start second-guessing yourself in there, where just like you said, you're standing 6 feet back. You don't really want to engage right away. You're not hungry to get in that pocket. You're not, I'll take a punch to give a punch. Those days are gone. You got a family now. You're in your mid-30s. You've been knocked out many times. You don't like the feeling. That last fight against Mike Perry, like, it's scary. It's the kind of thing that you think, oh my God, what's this guy going to look like tomorrow or a month from now? Does he even remember what happened the last week? Like, who knows? It's scary, but if Jake Ellenberger is nearing the end of his career and it seems like he's got the most fights out of anybody on the card. I think this is his 45th professional MMA fight. That's a lot of fights, dude. It might be over for him. And for that reason, Ben Saunders, for dog money, first of all, and not really that much on DK, he's got to be worth the play. You could take advantage of a fading star.
Let's move on down the card. We have Julio Arce taking on Daniel Teymur. Arce is 8,800 on DraftKings, minus 210 on the betting line, 7,400 plus 175 for Daniel. Not to be confused with Daniel, who we'll get to, or David. Who we'll get to,
I'm confused already.
We'll get to later on the card, who is later down the card there. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Julio Arce. No disrespect to Daniel Teymur, but this guy is as one-dimensional gets, man. He is going to stand in front of you, and he is going to wing bombs. Cardio doesn't seem to be there. He's pretty small for the weight class, I'd say. Absolutely no ground game. I think because he wings such bombs, that's probably what causes him to get real tired. He didn't look bad against Henry in his last fight. Starts out good in the first round, and then after that, it's like he gets figured out. He's the shorter guy, so guys that are Ranger that are quicker than him are going to beat him with the punch. He gets chewed up. The second he goes to the ground, it's like criminal how this fight doesn't get stopped in the second. And then in the third, you know he's got nothing left, can't fight on, crumples over. Unless he's made a drastic amount of improvements in his game in a relatively short period of time, I just don't know how he gets the victory here. Julio Arce, I would think, even though he's not a former European Muay Thai champion, even though he doesn't have that Swedish Muay Thai pedigree that a guy like Teymur has, I think he's probably a better striker. He's a former 2011 Golden Glove boxing champion, been with Tiger Schulman for a very long time, second-degree black belt under Tiger Schulman's own martial arts, basically. The guy is quick, man. If you want to beat him, you need to get him to the ground. Brian Kelleher is the only guy that's defeated this guy, and he relied heavily on getting him to the ground. A friend of mine, Mike Imperato, BJJ black belt, saw that as a path to victory against Arce. I need to get this guy down. Couldn't get this guy down, and as a result, ended up spending a week in a hospital up in New Jersey after the Ring of Combat show because he was screwed up, man. He will feed you that jab over and over. Kelleher managed to get him down, but Kelleher is an aggressive guy that moves forward and has takedowns, has a wrestling base, has a grappling base. Teymur doesn't have those things. So this is likely going to be a stand-up war unless Arce decides, this guy don't got no ground game, I'll just take him down. And I think he gets the victory there. I think if it stays standing, it'll be a greasy first round. It'll be a tight first round. Both guys get hit with the shots, but I feel like Arce is he's the younger guy. He's going to take those shots better. And then the second round, Teymur is going to get tired from loading up on these strikes. He's going to start to fall apart, and Arce is just going to pull it in. His last fight against Dan Ige, man, he pitches almost a near-perfect shutout. I mean, this is a guy that wants to take him down, but can't, and it's like, keep this guy on the outside and feed him. He's got a nasty jab, good from his southpaw stance, good kicks. I don't want to say the complete package because there's obviously people that are going to be nightmare matchups for him that are going to beat him, but this ain't one of them. So I think Arce gets the victory. I think he pieces him up on the feet. Looking at the price on it, 8,800. You would really need for Teymur to topple over and get finished, probably, hopefully somewhere in the second or third round. I'm not 100% sure that happens. If he takes him to the ground, he might be able to do the same thing like what happened in Teymur's last fight. Take him down, get on top of him, absolutely just drill him with ground and pound. But this guy had no quit in him. You know, he wasn't looking to quit. He wasn't looking for a way out. He's got a full camp this time, so he should be in better shape. That, yeah, maybe Daniel Teymur, Daniel Teymur. Now I'm getting confused with the two Teymurs. Exactly.
Battle of the Teymurs.
David's the better of the two. Let's put it that way. Let's put it that way.
David could be something special. We'll talk about him later down the card.
Daniel just happens to be related to him. Very fun style, Paul.
Yeah.
Very fun style. But very fun style is not going to get me the victory here, and I'm going to have to go with Arce.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. And you can't forget that his boy, Jimmy Rivera, in the biggest fight of his life to this point, main eventing a card on Fox, is right at the top. So, like, those guys are training together at Tiger Schulman's every single day, getting ready. So, like, I'm sure, and David, who came onto this card, he's coming in on short notice. He wasn't supposed to actually be in that spot originally. So, it's not like, I'm sure that those guys are training together all the time. But it's just kind of something I was thinking about, is this, like, Arce's going to come in like a stud because he's got Rivera getting ready every single day, grinding with him. I imagine that both of these guys are going to have a good performance.
Yeah, plus it's not his backyard. Again, New Jersey, New York, but shit, close enough. Let's give it to Arce.
All right, let's move on. We got Smile Sam Alvey taking on Gian Villante. Smile Sam, 8,500 on DraftKings, minus 140 on the betting line. Gian Villante, 7,700. Plus 120, and it's always frustrating when you go in to a Smiling Sam fight because
of course
he doesn't want to do anything half of the time. If we look at this, like, who has the better chin? Well, Smiling Sam does.
All day.
Do you think Gian Villante is really able to take down Smiling Sam? Probably not. So Gian Villante's wrestling really gets overblown because he's friends with Chris Weidman, who, trained or was a wrestler at Hofstra and met Gian Villante, who was a football player at Hofstra at the time. So it's just like, he wasn't even a wrestler at that time. He's learned some stuff along the way. He's more of a kickboxer, though. And his chin is not nearly what Smilin' Sam's is. The problem is that Smilin' Sam, unless you're rushing, if you're rushing into him, he'll just stand there and he'll do nothing for 3 rounds until like the last couple minutes of round 3. Because he's self-aware enough to know that he's losing the fight. But that's the frustrating thing. I like Smilin' Sam in this spot, but don't be shocked if he gets out-volumed and just never lays the hurt on Gian Villante. He could knock out Gian Villante, but he needs Gian Villante to start charging him. And Gian Villante, if nothing else, he's got good guys in his corner that are going to say, let's not charge Smilin' Sam. Because we saw what happened to that Polish, I forget his name now, Praknio or whatever, last time. You charge Smilin' Sam, it's a recipe to get knocked out. That's what happens. And I don't know if Gian Villante is like the type of athlete, the high explosive athlete, to really do what like Derek Brunson did to Smilin' Sam, either, to really barnstorm him. This guy, Gian Villante, goes the distance, goes long into fights with just about everybody that he fights. And I'm not convinced by any of the power that he has. I like Smilin' Sam. Maybe a little bit of DK exposure. But that's a GPP play because he could, in a cash game type of scenario, there's no guarantee that he gets really anything. You're just hoping that he clips Villante at some point in the fight. What'd you take here?
100%. If Villante does what he's capable of, then okay, he could stay on the outside and he could out-volume Sam Alvey, who is known for very little volume. But even like you're saying, he's got good guys in his corner. They, formulate a great game plan. Okay, John, don't rush in there. And then as soon as that bell sounds, all he sees is his opponent as a quarterback, and he thinks he's back in his Hofstra football days, and he charges in. I don't know why he does it, Paul, but he's got a bad problem with running in against opponents, which generally leads to him getting dropped and put down. Just look a quick rundown of some of this guy's fights, and he is getting hit. He has had 3 fights in which his opponent has landed over 100 significant strikes on him. Sean O'Connell landed over 100 significant strikes on him. Corey Anderson, not known for his striking, by the way, and he won that fight. Corey Anderson landed over 100 significant strikes on him. This guy is there. That fight with Safarov. Safarov has one knee. Safarov is bobbling around, and he's got him chewed up. And what does he do, Paul? He runs in there. And as a result, he gets hit with a couple big shots. Like, I don't know about Jean Villante. I don't know if it's his ring IQ or it's his game plans, but he is just a very, very hittable opponent. In his last fight against, by the way, Pat Cummins, another guy. It was a split decision against Pat Cummins, but outstruck by Pat Cummins. Tom Lawler, outstruck by Tom Lawler. Shogun Hua landed nearly 100 significant strikes and knocked him out. Everybody puts hands on this guy. His last fight against Francimar Barroso, I say, this is a good line. And this is a line where your opponent probably can't knock you out. He is going to beat Francimar Barroso. I feel he should have got a unanimous decision, shouldn't have been a split. However, 76 significant strikes landed by Francimar Barroso on Jean Villante. And there lies the issue. Sam Alvey doesn't throw a whole lot of punch. He's not going to land over 100 significant strikes. The punches that he does land, however, tend to have devastating power. I get his last fight was the first time he had finished opponent in his previous 4, but he's fighting better guys, you know? I mean, when you're fighting Rashad Evans, it's going to be a grind fest. Rashad Evans is going to try to wrestle you, and at the end of the day, you know, he is shot to bits, but it's Rashad Evans. The fight with Ramazan Ameev, man, I mean, he took the fight on like a week's notice. He missed weight by 10 pounds, and he's getting grinded against the cage by Ameev. These are good guys. When he takes guys that try to bum rush him, they end up eating a Sam Alvey counter, and they don't like it. I think wrestling's off the table because, like you said, Sam Alvey's one of these guys that is very, very difficult to take down. If you do take him down, he generally more times than not just pops right back up. But I am worried about the volume with him because, like, you let the other guy dictate the action. I mean, he lost to Talis Latis, just letting Talis Latis dictate the action. That is a giant red flag. But Villante is not the kind of guy that's just going to have a methodical game plan to pick this guy apart, you know? Sam Alvey got on the mic and specifically called out Jean Villante after his last fight and said, this would be a very fun fight. I'd be honored to fight you. Jean Villante's like, let's have a party, have a good time. It's like, not a party, not a good time. Don't rush in against Sam Alvey because he's a dangerous counterpuncher. His left hook is nasty. That's how kind of Villante fights. So now you have this fight in New York. The fans are going to be raucous. This is a fun fight on paper. At least it has the potential to be a fun fight on paper. If they start booing, he'll just rush in. And when Sam Alvey fights, there's a lot of booing usually goes on because he's not doing nothing. His opponent's a little weary of that big power. His opponent doesn't do anything. People boo. You boo Jean Villante, he's going in there to get some action. And I feel like at some point he's going to get clipped and he's going to go down. So give me Smile Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey's also at 205 pounds now. And if you've ever met Sam Alvey, he's a monstrous guy, like a big dude. And I almost wonder if fighting at 185 and cutting 35 pounds is partly the reason why he doesn't throw shit, because he doesn't want to gas himself out. He conserves some energy. Maybe at 205, it's not a grappling heavy fight. He's not going to tire out. Maybe he's going to be able to throw some more punches. He loves to counter, and Jean Villante is a guy that's very easily counterable. So sign me up for some Sam Alvey. The 8,500, if you're going to go on the fact that he could get a first or second round knockout, it would pay good. Problem is, if it doesn't get the knockout and ends up being a drawn out decision, he's not going to score shit because, as we just talked about, he doesn't really throw anything. So a little bit worried at the $8,500 price tag, but I'll be trying to mount some lineups.
Let's move on. We got Sijara Eubanks taking on Lauren Murphy. Sijara Eubanks is 8,400 on DraftKings, minus 170 on the betting line. Lauren Murphy is 7,800 plus 150. It's kind of, I don't want to sound off base here, but this division is considerably behind the other divisions. And this is a classic old school style fight. Grappler versus striker. Is Eubanks able to stop the grinding pace, the grinding style of Lauren Murphy? I'm going to say no. I think Eubanks was supposed to be the one to go into and take on Nico Montano, and a lot of people were picking her. She was kind of like the wild card that came through that show, and her record's like 3-2, nothing really.
2-2.
You're
looking at those UFC records. Yeah, of course.
So does our board. But she looked good on the show, and she was able to come along. And we got Lauren Murphy, who kind of... The thing about, at least in terms of drafting, I'm not betting this fight myself, especially at minus 170 for Eubanks. But the thing about Lauren Murphy is she won that last fight that she had. It was a close
decision. Did she?
No, but what I'm saying is she scored 51, or no, I guess she had a 51-point average. I don't think she scored very much. So it was like 60 points or something like that in a victory. So 7,800, like, even if she pulls off the win here, like, you're looking for somebody who's going to, like, dominate in the wrestling exchanges. And I don't really trust her to pull it off again. What'd you take?
Yeah, I feel like at this point, Lauren Murphy is just untrustworthy. I mean, she's a girl. I know when you say classic striker versus grappler, the thing is I honestly feel like Eubanks is the better striker. But Lauren Murphy is grindy. She will just come out there and maybe not be more technical than you, but she'll just put a pace on you. She'll just keep going at you until she can hopefully break you down. But I mean, for a girl that calls herself Lucky Lauren, she hasn't had a whole lot of luck in the UFC. I mean, coming over from Invicta, that was kind of at the peak of her career, you know, as she was doing better than she ever has, won the title, come to the UFC, and since then, man, it's been rocky. She hasn't looked particularly good outside of, you know, beating the Kelly Fasholz of the world. She lost, I thought, pretty handily to Liz Carmouche. She lost to Sarah McMahon. Again, it was a split. I thought it should have been unanimous. She's getting out grappled in those fights. When she does keep the fight standing, she's just not putting enough hands on the person. She almost has a trouble of gauging distance, and that's what causes her in tough. This is a girl that was fighting at 135. She drops down to 125, and she's seen as someone who has a great shot at winning the Ultimate Fighter. She goes on the Ultimate Fighter. She's like the number 3 ranked girl in the show. She takes on Nico Montano in the very first fight, and she can't gauge the distance against Montano. She goes to get in the pocket. She should be the bigger fighter coming down from 35, but she is slow, Paul. She is slow. She doesn't have much movement to her. She just tries to bully you down, and that's a terrible game plan if you're going to fight somebody like Eubanks, who's just, you know, also kind of a bully. She's a big, strong girl. Eubanks is a BJJ black belt under Lloyd Irvin. She's a 7-time IBJJF world champion. Her ground credentials are second to none. Problem is that she probably has a lot of trouble cutting the weight, and is she going to be able to go out there and have a three hard rounds in a fight? I don't know. Her run in the Ultimate Fighter looked pretty good, man. I mean, it really did. Knocking out Deanna Bennett with a head kick like that, no, I don't think a whole lot of people saw the grappler coming in, throwing those sweet head kicks. The Roxanne Modafferi fight, yeah, I don't know, it's Modafferi, I get it. Modafferi against this level of opposition didn't look out of place because it's low level. But she goes out there and she dominates Modafferi 30-27. Her versus Montana would have been a fun fight, and unfortunately the weight cut botches it for her, so we don't know. Outside of that, her only losses are to good fighters. Her last pro loss is to Aspen Ladd, who now has trouble making 135 pounds in the UFC. Is a big gal. She also arguably won the first round against Ladd before getting completely exhausted against, you know, the bigger fighter. So I feel like Eubanks can get this fight to the ground. She's going to be way better. Lauren Murphy's best asset, in my opinion, top game. She's got good top game. She gets on top of you. She'll hold you there. She'll smother you. She'll pound away. But she's not getting on top of Eubanks. And if she does, Eubanks should be a more than enough competent grappler to get herself out of those dirty situations. So let's say it's a striking exchange. Let's say most of the exchanges are going to be taking place on the feet. I feel like Eubanks is faster. She's a better athlete. She's rangier. She's going to kick at her a lot more. And Lauren Murphy's just going to do what Lauren Murphy does, and that's try to move forward, get kicked a whole bunch, try to close the distance, try to make something happen. So I agree with you. This is a pass fight. I myself am looking to pass on this fight, but I feel like Eubanks should get the victory.
Let's move on. We got David Teymur taking on Nick the Carney Lentz. David Teymur is 9,100 DraftKings minus 280 on the betting line. Nick Lentz 7,100 plus 240. Who you got? Yeah,
I actually wanted to do this with you quick here. Is that, you know, we haven't really done it in a while, so this is Nick Lentz, okay? This is his very first. These are his victories in the UFC, okay? Rafael Oliveira, you're not there no more. Rob Emerson, Andre Winner, Tyson Griffin, Waylon Lowe, Iji Mitsuoka, Diego Nunez, Hakran Diaz, Manny Gamburian. Oh wait, remember that time he beat Danny Castillo and Michael McBride? Yeah. He's got 12 wins in the UFC. Oh yeah, sorry, his last win's Will Brooks. He's got 12 victories in the UFC. Not a single one of those victories still maintain a job in the UFC.
Plus, he's out of...
That's pretty crazy, dude.
He's outsized in every single fight at 155. I know that his body shut down. And,
he's having trouble.
Hey, if you can't cut, that's fine. But that's also going to be a disadvantage for you in most fights moving forward. And Teymur, he kind of looks like the new breed. We're seeing a lot of creative, crafty striking from him, and he seems really good at getting back up to his feet when he's in a scramble. This is a guy who seems to be training everything. And when he probably got into the sport, he started out as a
Muay
Thai guy, but all the other things have kind of come along. I don't think he's not going to go out there and submit Nick Lentz by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he keeps it on the feet, and I think he pieces up Nick Lentz, and either Nick Lentz, who is tough, got to give him that, either Nick Lentz just takes a sustained beating for 3 rounds and it's a 30-27, or at some point he kind of just falters, keels over, and succeeds victory over to the Swede here. What's your take?
Yeah, again, I mean, a lot of the time when you think of a country like Sweden, it's not quick to jump on like, oh, these guys are good wrestlers. But actually, if you look at the World Cup or you look at Olympics, like wrestling internationally, Sweden hasn't got a bad squad, but it's these guys at All-Star Gym, and these guys down in Sweden have made a significant point of improving their wrestling. They've made it a point in their training. Alexander Gustafsson, this is a guy that really had no wrestling background. He's a good striker. He's going out there in the UFC and he was taking down good guys. He's secured takedowns against John Jones and Daniel Cormier. How does this Swedish striker learn the wrestling? Putting in the hours. David Teymur, like you said, he's the next breed. He's one of these guys that starts off, a lot of the time you start off with the grappling base, and then you add the striking, you become a competent striker who's a good grappler. In this case, you're seeing more guys that come with that grappling base, can just keep the fight standing. He's not going out there necessarily trying to use his wrestling to take the fight to the ground. Just keep the fight standing. If you do, I've got a nasty leg kick game, I've got big loaded shots, I got a good right hand, he's going to be able to make guys pay, and that's what David Teymur has been able to do. I mean, his fight with Lando Venata's looking at like, oh man, that's the new kid on the block, gave Ferguson a great fight. I think a lot of people were discounting Teymur in that fight, but he goes out there and he absolutely pieces him apart. The one worry I have is truly, I do believe that Teymur goes in there against Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz is much slower. And again, another one of these guys that's hittable, been around the game for a very long time. I think he's going to get pieced up. I think he's going to go the 3 rounds. He's going to get beat up, though. And ultimately, it'll be Teymur picking up that decision victory. Teymur's only going to have significant strikes. He's not going to have any takedowns. He's not going to have any ground transitions. He's not going to have any of that. So I don't think he's necessarily going to score very high, and that's one of the reasons I'm avoiding him. But the one worry I have is that in his last fight against Drakkar Klose, I know he gets the victory, but I thought that was a close fight, man. Like, Drakkar Klose didn't really have much more of a game plan than try to hold on to him.
Or try to get the judges to get on my side.
By putting on what you doing. Yeah.
This guy's doing nothing. I'm doing all the stuff. It's just like, look, you're complaining.
Nothing. He was doing
you're
nothing
actually
as well.
also doing nothing.
Yeah, fair. But that's a fight where it's like, okay, he should be able to go out and beat Drakkar Klose. He's going to have the wrestling to keep the fight standing. He's a better striker than him. But Drakkar Klose is just able to get him to the fence and hold him down. And he's able to try to use that grappling, not super successfully, but use your size.
Probably a better athlete, Drakkar Klose, though.
Probably a better athlete than Nick Lentz. But Nick Lentz is one of these guys that he'll come at you. He's not afraid to get into a scrap. He's not afraid to get into war. He's got a chip on his shoulder. After leaving American Top Team, the guy really had a lot of fire. Like, he talked mad shit against BJ Penn, which is, for a lot of people, a big no-no. He also loves Donald Trump, which I guess for some people is probably a no-no. But the guy's tough, man. Like, you can't take that away from him. He'll get subbed by guys that are great grapplers, but that's not one of them. Guys like Islam Makhachev will toss them on his head, but Teymur's not going to do that. This is striker versus grappler, just like you're talking about. It's an old classic matchup, and the grappler usually has good success in these kind of matchups. So I have Teymur, but I do see that there's some risk here. Like, maybe he's the apple shitter of the week. We don't know yet, but it's possible that he's one of those guys that on paper is faster, better striker, younger. UFC would want this guy to win over Nick Lentz, but he's just going to have another slow, lethargic-paced fight. So I got Teymur, but personally I'm going to avoid this one as far as DraftKings goes.
I like Teymur as well. I like Teymur to win. 9,100.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And he's got to get a finish against a guy who's tough to finish. And of course, if he's worried about the grappling and stuff, he's going to be a little bit less active, a little bit less. He's not going to jump in there as much to land his strikes. So all of that kind of breeds like a guy who scores like 70 points in a striking clinic, a striking dominance with 70 points. It's like, it's not doing anything for you, especially
when you pay 9,100. It's not.
When you get up to here, I'm probably paying up for Walt Harris, or I'm paying up for Gregor Gillespie, and maybe that makes David Teymur a nice little contrarian play in a tournament because you're just fishing for that like first round knockout. But I don't think that Nick Lentz is quite done yet, and the guy has been tough. So you'd have to be getting dropped multiple times. You have to be getting knockdown points and stuff. Whereas like I just think the safer floor, somebody like Gregor Gillespie, it's just like, unless he gets clipped in the first round and gets knocked out, it's like if this goes 3 rounds, like this guy is scoring 100 points.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like, all of these wrestlers. That's the breed. That's the kind of guy. Khabib, Suarez, Gillespie, putting them all in that same class. they're elite DraftKings plays, and I'm gonna pay up for him. I'm gonna spend the extra $400. I'll find other ways later on down the card. We got Bilal Muhammad taking on Chance Rencountre.
Yeah.
Rencountre. What are we calling him here?
Rencontre? No, I think it's Rencountre.
Rencountre. Let's call him Rencountre. Muhammad is 9,400 on DraftKings, minus 400 on the betting line. Rencountre 6,800 plus 325. Who you got?
I think we all got to agree that Bilal Muhammad probably takes out this short notice replacement. It's nothing against Rencountre. I mean, the only thing I see him coming into this fight with the advantage is that he's taller. He's significantly taller than Bilal Muhammad. Thing is with Bilal Muhammad is that all the guys he fights are significantly taller. Tim Means was 6'2". Randy Brown's 6'3". You know what I mean? Like, he fights guys that are traditionally taller than him, and yet he finds a way to win. His chin is awesome, and I've always said that. I watched him a lot when he was the Titan FC champion. He goes 5 rounds all day. His gas tank's great. His striking doesn't really have much power. His grappling doesn't have an incredible submission game, so he goes to the decision a lot. Maybe that's the only knock on him. But man, can he ever take a punch. In his fight against Jouban, his UFC debut, he puts that on full display. He gets dropped multiple times. In the 3rd round, Jouban's tired of hitting this guy, and Bilal Muhammad just keeps coming forward. The one, anomaly for that whole thing is that Vicente Luque absolutely turned him inside out.
But Luque has been doing that.
But Luque's a fantastic striker.
A couple weeks ago as well.
Yeah. I'm not saying that Bilal Muhammad is the most technical guy. So guys that are sharp and technical, they'll hit him and they could hurt him potentially. But yeah, I just feel like he walks through a lot of strikes. He's a good grappler. He's a guy that pushes it on you. A lot of people thought Tim Means may have beaten him, but again, I thought Bilal Muhammad won that fight, and he pushes it more. He's the guy that's being the aggressor. He's the guy that's landing the more meaningful shots. You can hit this guy, but if you hit him twice, he's marching forward. He's at least getting one back, and he makes it count. He almost kind of like breaks guys down ever so slightly over time. That's tough if you're Chance coming in here. Chance is taking a big chance. I'm 9-3. Who knows how long it's going to take me to get a UFC contract. In his last number of fights, I think he's on a 4-fight winning streak right now, but there's no, Chris Harris, is that his biggest win in his last number of fights? And then there's a washed up Bellator fighter. He hasn't really fought to the level. And then his losses, losing to Justin Patterson, I know he avenged the fight, but again, he's losing to mid-level guys and he's beating mid-level guys. Whereas Bilal Muhammad is not a mid-level guy. He was getting ready to take on Nico Price. It would have been a fun fight, would have been an exciting fight. He's got a full camp. He's a New York guy, or he's a Chicago guy, sorry, but I feel like they're gonna support him here. And I honestly feel like he's just gonna walk through whatever Chance got and put it on him. Will he get the finish? No, I don't think so. And I only say that because if you look at his history, not the kind of guy that finishes fights, but he's the kind of guy that puts pace on you. He will get takedowns. He will get some ground transitions, hopefully. He will land a lot of significant strikes that I could see at the 9,400. You almost really want that finish. And for that reason, I'm going to avoid it.
Yeah.
But like when you're saying, maybe it's a play. People will look at David Teymur, and say, David Teymur's a great striker, and Nick Lentz is a little old. I'll pay up for a guy like that. A heavily played guy will be Gregor Gillespie, where a lot of people are like, he's going to get 100 points, he's got those takedowns. They'll be probably a lot more owned than the cheaper option in Bilal Muhammad. He should be very safe. If you're playing a cash game and you just want some safe plays and you've got a value pick on there that allows you to afford him, then by all means. But he's only $100 cheaper than Gillespie, so I personally would pay up for that. But I don't think Bilal Muhammad's the worst play out there. I think he's very on the safe side. He should be able to go out to get this victory. And will he score his value worth? I'm not sure, but should be a shutout, and oftentimes, he could be capable of getting 90 points in those exchanges and ultimately pay off decent. So I'm not completely avoiding him, but he is expensive given that he's not exactly a potent finisher.
Couldn't agree more. We move on down the card. We have Desmond Green taking on Gleison Tibau. Desmond Green, 99,000 on DraftKings, minus 300 on the betting line. Gleison Tibau, 7,200 plus 250. Maybe I'm missing something here. And I realized Gleison Tibau took on a wrestler in his last fight, and he got knocked out by Israel Makhachev.
Quick.
But the thing is that we talked about going into that fight, coming off of the USADA violation and all of that. What's he gonna look like when he comes back? Physically,
pretty good.
The guy was still tanked.
Yeah.
He still looked strong. He got clipped. He got knocked out. I'm gonna almost chalk it up to these things happening in MMA. Desmond Green doesn't really have that knockout, turn off your switch type of power. We haven't really seen that from him. I just think that this is a much tougher fight for Desmond Green. than the line and the DraftKings price is telling me at this point. Like, Gleison Tibau's scary, especially after getting knocked out after 2 years off. All these things are factors that do matter, but I just don't understand. I just don't understand this line. I think it's way too wide. Maybe he's able to outpoint him, but I hate him. I don't like Desmond Green at all. Ooh. Energy drink burp there. The things that go on behind the scenes here. We got, I just think 9,000. Gleison Tibau historically has been a guy that if you're going 3 rounds with him, if you don't finish him early, we saw Tony Ferguson finish him. We saw Makhachev finish him. But if you're going 3 rounds with him, it's a greasy, long, drawn-out fight, and nobody scores all that much. Preferred play here is Gleison Tibau, though it's scary. What's your take?
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, it's almost a case of how the mighty have fallen. Gleison Tibau, gangster, been around a long time, always kind of been in that mix. Not a top contender, not a guy challenging for the title, but always in the mix. A tough fight for anybody. Those 2 years off, did it ruin him? I don't know. Was that just a lucky punch against Makhachev? I don't know. Is his chin gone? I don't know. This guy used to have supreme durability. Like, who are the guys that have seriously hurt him? Tony Ferguson? Nick Diaz? That's about it. This guy can take a great shot. And the Makhachev punch, it was well placed, but it wasn't like it was the biggest shot. It turned his lights out. He didn't know where he was at. So now you think, okay, here's a guy that's built on his durability. If we always compare him to Trinaldo and Michel Prazeres, their guys are all durable. If either of them didn't have a chin, if any of them didn't have a chin, they wouldn't be as significantly as effective as they are. Maybe if his chin's gone, we've got a problem. But with Des Green, it's like, he must have pissed somebody off at the UFC because he doesn't get any sexy, quote-unquote, looking fights. Debuts against Emmett, wins against Josh Emmett, but I mean, that's a close fight that's hard to look good in. And then he gets Habilov and Michel Prazeres. Michel Prazeres, who missed weight grossly for that fight. Like, he does not get easy fights, and he generally gets...
Well, he lost against Josh Emmett, but it was a close fight.
It was a close fight, and all he did was kind of just outpoint him, and I think that's what you're pointing out in this fight too. It's like, if he is going to win, he's going to have to rely on just outpointing him, and if he's going to outpoint him, $9,000 price tag, that's huge. The minus 300, man, that's huge. He's lost his last 2 fights, and he's faltered. He's faltered against guys that fight pretty similar to Gleison Tibau.
This could be a situation, though, that, like, maybe Gleison was able to find something to work getting ready for that last fight. And we're going to see him on the scales, which would be Thursday morning.
Yep.
We're going to see him on the scales, and the guy's going to look like Dad Bod Vitor, and you'll be like, oh, this all makes sense. The wheels have actually finally fallen off for this guy. I'm not expecting to see that, though, because the last fight that we saw him, we were worried about that. We were thinking about that. We thought that could be a possibility. And physically, he looked just as good as ever.
He looked physically good, absolutely. But he goes out there and he looks slow and he looked kind of plodding.
Sure.
And he stood in front of him almost like a deer in the headlights. And by the way, dude, 2 years away from the ring. Like, talk about ring rust.
Yeah, and you're old.
But his last fight did not do anything to shake off any ring rust. He basically didn't even get started. Fight's done in less than a minute. You're knocked out by a guy who really hadn't shown a propensity to knock guys out in the first place. Now he gets Des Green. Des Green's way faster than him. Des Green's got the kind of wrestling that I don't think he's going to go out there and take Tibau down, but he should be able to keep the fight standing. If it stays at distance, he's just going to outpoint him. He doesn't have the concussive power, and that's what I'd want someone to take advantage of Tibau right now. What's this guy like right now? Is his chin gone? I don't know. Let's chin check him and test it out. With Des Green, it's like he can land those shots, but I don't know that he's got that big one punch ending power to put him out. I don't know that he's trick enough to land something like a big head kick or land some type of dynamic strike that's going to hurt Gleison Tibau. But Tibau's way slower than him at this point. So Tibau from 2 years ago choked out Abel Trujillo like nothing. Mm-hmm. That positive test led to the no contest. And prior to that, he's mixed bag results. He gets smoked against Ferguson. The Piotr Hallman fight was actually really greasy. Like, I don't really know where Tibau is at now. The 2 years coming back didn't look good. But again, we talk about a guy like Guido Canetti. Guido Canetti looked terrible prior to taking his 2-year ban, comes back, loses his debut, gets finished, and then in a second fight, hey, look at that. Maybe not as bad as everybody thought perhaps Guido Canetti is. This is a spot where it's like maybe Tibau is going to show us a little bit of a better version of him than he did in the Makhachev fight. But he looks so bad in there that I can't get behind him. I would say that I kind of think Des Green's just going to do enough to outpoint him, but I need way more than that if I'm going to put 9,000 for DK. And as far as the 3-1 betting odds, like, he's on a 2-fight losing streak. He is in close lackluster, uneventful fights lately that he's been on the short end of it. So why would I have any type of confidence in him that he's going to win as a 3-1 favorite? I don't. I do think he's the better striker. Like I said, I keep saying he's a quicker guy. He's got better footwork. He's a law ranger, training at Hard Knocks 365 with, what is the Black Zillions. I know he's going to be well trained, well prepared for this fight, but the value just really makes me turned off by it altogether.
We got Jessica Aguilar taking on Jody Esquibel. Aguilar 8,300 on DraftKings, minus 130 on the betting line. Esquibel 7,900 plus 110. Who do you got?
These are one of those fights that makes me hate myself as an MMA fan. Because I think with Jessica Aguilar, after her last fight with Courtney Casey, I sat there, I watched it, and I said to myself, never again! And here we are. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself,
People,
$8,300. That's not really all that
Aguilar.
bad. Yeah, well, just the thing with Aguilar is that at one point she was the best female fighter in 115 pounds. Like, this girl was a wrecking machine. When she was fighting in Bellator, she beat Megumi Fuji. Yeah, arguably the first time, I kind of thought Fuji won. All the same, you beat a girl that's legendary at the time. You then furthermore go to Japan and beat her in a rematch. That's huge. She signs the World Series of Fighting because the UFC doesn't have a division for her. She doesn't fight a spectacular level of competition over there. But all the same, she looks very dominant. She can go 5 rounds. Her wrestling is second to none for the division. Awesome. She comes to the UFC, and it's very much been kind of like a Barb Honchak. There was a time where you were the best in the world, kind of like a Tara LaRosa. There was a time where you were the best in the world. But those times are long behind you, man. The game moved on, and they just kind of stayed in the past. And as a result, she's had some 3 fights in the last 4 years. She's not particularly active. She's always been an American top team, and she's just kind of developed into like a coaching position. She's helping mentor that next crop of female fighter coming out of ATT. And I think that she's going to be good in that coaching role. She's going to be good as a mentor. But as far as her competitive abilities goes, she's having a rough time. Now, let's give her a pass because she makes her debut against Claudia Gadelha, and that's one of the top fighters in the division and a very tough task. But the fight with Courtney Casey Sanchez, the fight with Sanchez, I mean, she's completing takedowns, Paul. But she opts to stand over top of Casey, not do anything. Courtney Casey wins that fight off of her back by kicking. It is the most bizarre thing to watch. It's super frustrating, and it would make you think to yourself, yeah, Jessica Aguilar cut to me. But the one thing I took from that is that she can at the very least, still wrestle. And because Casey's a black belt, she didn't particularly want to go on the ground with a girl that was way bigger than her and a black belt. So she opted to get those takedowns and then didn't do anything with it. Now she's got to realize back against the wall. I make enough money that I'm going to get cut here if I lose. I've had a terrible run in the UFC that's seen me go 0-2. I don't fight particularly often. If I do not win this fight against Jody Esquibel, whose back is also against the wall, I am going to be released. So she's got to show something. The thing with Esquibel is Esquibel used to fight at 105 pounds in Invicta. She's a small girl. She's up in the UFC at 115 because, I mean, there's really no other game in town. I have to compete at 115. But she's a small, meatball, compact fighter. But if you look at some of her body of work, last fight with Carolina, she just gets chewed up all over the place. You can take this girl down. When you take her down, her takedown defense is not very good. And Aguilar only really has takedowns. So mathematically speaking, if we're looking as far as DK goes, she's going to be low owned. I would have to assume she's low owned.
Yeah.
She's only $8,300, and she's just going to complete takedowns. That last fight with Casey,
if you can trust her to do that.
She scored like...
Unless she just stands over top and...
She won't do that against Esquibel.
Well, she knows.
No, because Esquibel's not the same level of grappler. At least if you go on the ground with Casey, and we've seen with Casey, if you go on the ground with her, she's throwing up arm bars. She is actively trying to submit you the entire time she's off her back.
Long limbs, very physical.
Big, strong girl for the weight class. When you look at Esquibel's small for the weight class.
Yeah.
So similar to last week when we talked about Molly McCann, who, oh, by the way, that was the real apple pie shitter for me last week, was you can't spell McCann without can. Small, compact, short fighter. The immediate...
Zero grappling.
No ground game. The immediate process
The
was
worst grappling.
going to be hard to take her down because she's so short. It's like, nope. If you've got any type of grappling abilities, you can get her down. If you get her down, you can exploit her. Jody Esquibel trains at Greg Jackson's. You would think that she'd be a lot better than she is, but she shows a deficiency in the takedown defense department. And when she's on the ground, maybe she works her way back up. But Aguilar's bigger, stronger, more physical, and should just peel her down. It's not the sexiest pick in the world, and I wouldn't put it on every single lineup. But the $8,300, I think she scored something like 50 points against Sanchez because she had significant strikes and she had the takedowns. If she goes here and actually fights for a change, didn't fight in that last fight. She goes out here and actually fights for a change and can get me 4 or 5 takedowns and can get me some ground transitions and can get me some significant strikes. She is going to get her value worth at 83. I would hope, and then it would be worth it for me. So that's someone I'm having an eye on because I think she'll be low percentage, and that's the kind of thing that if she has a great performance and she can score big, maybe that's the kind of thing that steals you a cash game or a big pool. That remains to be seen what her sky is at.
That's probably safe.
Yeah.
Because you're probably getting 3 rounds out of her.
I
Worst case scenario.
I would think almost for sure if she loses, she's going to last the distance because she's gone the distance with better fighters. But 5-round cardio, a good pace, good wrestling. She trains with better girls than Esquibel on a regular basis. So put one together here. Get your first UFC victory and show everybody that you did actually used to be a class fighter.
We got Nathaniel Wood taking on Johnny Eduardo. Nathaniel Wood, 9,200 on DraftKings, minus 290 on the betting line. Johnny Eduardo, 7,000 plus 245. Nathaniel Wood, just from watching tape and stuff, like this guy comes to. This is a GPP style of fighter.
Yeah, he likes to party.
This guy is coming to throw down every single fight. And we've talked about Nova União. Johnny Eduardo used to be the Muay Thai coach for Nova União. And everything's falling apart at the seams there. So, at first glance, when I first saw it, I was just like, Nathaniel Wood, big, massive favorite over top of him. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? When I start to kind of unravel the layers and all of that. One thing is that Eduardo, like if we look at like the Eddie Wineland fight, I don't know if he still has that in the tank, but like the guy isn't a terrible GPP punt himself. I think you target this fight. I would like to have a little bit of Wood, but if I'm going to be paying up for Gillespie, who is my favorite play, and he's the most expensive guy in the card, and I like some Walt Harris, so I would probably mix in some Walt Harris and some Nathaniel Wood. But there's no guarantee that, hey, you're going up against the Muay Thai coach of Nova União, and you're kind of a brawling type of striker. Like, that's what we see most of his action has happened in his MMA career on the regional scene. So, like, it's a risky one. I wouldn't play Nathaniel Wood in cash because I don't think it's a lock that he gets the knockout here. But this is going to be a high-intensity, super fun fight to watch. And I think somebody's getting knocked out. Most likely, it is Johnny Eduardo. And Nova União continues to fall and continues to be irrelevant in 2018, but interested to hear what you think on this one.
This is a sweet bit of matchmaking, I would say. With Johnny Eduardo, he doesn't fit the same mold as those regular Nova União guys that it's like, oh man, really hard to take them down, BJJ black belts, good submission games, and they're all good strikers. It's like, yeah, no, he's a good striker, and that's pretty much about as far as it goes. When he goes to the ground, Paul, especially lately, he is getting dominated. His only thing is that he is Johnny Eduardo. He packs a punch, and he would like to keep this fight standing. Traditionally, the guys that have just stood and trade with Johnny Eduardo don't have the best luck. Now he is getting older. He is a hittable guy. His chin's not fantastic. But at the very least, there's pretty much only one thing this guy does, and that's stand and bang, because he's still got, so he packs a mean shot. And that's the one thing that I'd say, not the worst GPP play, because Nathaniel Wood likes to get in a dogfight.
It's going to be... like, everything I've watched from Wood, it's just like, this is a barn burner. Which is super exciting, but like, those types of guys, we've seen it with Justin Gaethje, as a guy who got into these brawls and stuff, and just like, your chin holds up for a bit, but then eventually it catches up with you. Or eventually you find someone who's a little bit more technical and crafty than you. Is Johnny Eduardo that guy at this stage in his career? I don't know. We haven't seen much from Johnny Eduardo. He doesn't really fight all that often, and when he has recently, besides the Eddie Wineland win that is basically saving his career at this point, he hasn't really. It was
a while ago. He doesn't fight often.
He's not doing the same stuff anymore. But I think Wood gets the win. But it's a risky one.
Well, that's what I mean. I think most people are on Wood's favorite. Yeah, he's a nearly 3-1 favorite.
I don't know if I want to bet that even.
Well, he's a near 3-1 favorite, and that's dangerous because, he's the favorite. He's the younger guy. He's the hotter prospect. The UFC would probably rather this guy win than old man Johnny Eduardo. But again, he fights into Johnny Eduardo's hand. It's that Johnny doesn't want to go to the ground at this point. He doesn't want to get taken down. That last fight with Matthew Lopez, he's taken down like nothing. He's finished on the ground. Not a great look for him. In fact, he gets tagged a couple times in that fight as well. But he doesn't want to go to the ground. He doesn't want Aljamain Sterling on him. He doesn't want any of those guys taking him down repeatedly. He wants someone like Eddie Wineland is the kind of guy that will fight your game for you, right? He will stand with you and he will throw bombs. And Johnny Eduardo wants to do that. With Nathaniel Wood, and we talk about some guys oftentimes, is that they'll fight to the level of their opponent. Their opponent's good, they'll have a good performance. Their opponent's bad, they still look good, but they're taking unnecessary shots. When this guy fights in Europe, man, he takes shots. He goes out there and he throws hands, he gets hit. That's just kind of the way he fights. When you're young, you can fight like that. And he hasn't really had that big chin check moment. He's losing, his grappling is maybe his issue, but hell, that's Eduardo's issue. So let's just say it's striker versus striker. Are you really confident that he's going to beat him, 6 out of 9 times? Do you think he's going to beat him 8 out of 10 times? I don't know. I feel like at some point Eduardo could clip this guy, could hurt this guy. He's got bright lights coming in here. He's making his official UFC debut. Eduardo's already been the block a couple times. Eduardo's a savvy veteran. Eduardo's struck his entire life with top-notch level strikers, whereas Woods, this European prospect that we don't know a whole lot about other than he's looked really exciting.
They were in Liverpool last week too.
Yeah, you think they could have found a spot for him on that card, but all the same, he's got to make the trip over here. So I agree with you. When you look at the grand scheme of things, if you got Gillespie, who's an expensive guy, and you go Walt Harris, that's an expensive guy, you can try to go the route of saving money and taking a Jean Villante, or you could try to take who was the other play that was decent at that price, or Jessica Aguilar at 8,300. But what are those sub $8,000 plays that are any good? They're bad. You don't want Spitz. You don't want Spitz. You don't want Nick Lentz. You don't want Gleison Tibau. You don't want but Johnny Eduardo at 7,000. Well, that's not so bad as
high upside. It's a GPP.
It's a punt play, and that's all you can really hope is that Johnny Eduardo lands something and hurts him. I mean,
generally, it's going to be a ferocious pace in this fight.
Yeah,
so you're chasing the pace and you're hoping to get lucky.
That's it.
That's what you got to do in GPPs, though. So Eduardo is a good GPP play. I think we've basically agreed on that.
Finally, risky, but yeah, he could pay off.
Finally, we've got Jose Shorty Torres making his promotional debut, long-awaited promotional debut, high-end prospect that people have been talking up for a long time here. He's 8,700 on DraftKings, minus 175 on the betting line, taking on Jared Brooks, who's 7,500 plus 155. What's your take here?
Yeah, I mean, this is as good as it gets. These are two guys that could have very well met down the road, but instead, short notice opportunity presents itself, and you jump on it. I think with Shorty Torres, he's 25-1 as an amateur. He's got what appears to be the most decorated amateur record of all time. Like, this isn't boxing. Guys don't win multiple titles across multiple weight classes as an amateur. You kind of fight a couple times, get your feet wet, and jump into the pro ranks. This guy did it the right way. He competed twice at the IMAF tournament. He won gold both times. Pretty much everything that's got put in front of him, he's killed. That HKH team out of Abu Dhabi, they were so impressed with him. These sheiks offered him a contract where basically he went down there and trained for a little while. Yeah, I mean, certainly sky looks like the limit for him. He comes to Titan FC, and dude, he's fighting good guys basically right off the hop. He's 2-0, and he's taking on guys that are world title challengers, guys that are at a high level. Then the son of a bitch decides to move up to 135. And dude, he looks good at 35. He smoked Santos out of the water. His last fight, big knockout, like he finished his fights. This guy is super exciting. He's still young. He's extremely well-rounded. He's been training martial arts since he was like 3 years old. He's a former JUCO All-American, so I mean, junior college, but all the same, he knows how to wrestle. That's not even his strong suit. He's a striker who just decided to dabble a little bit in wrestling so that he knew how to keep the fight standing. Like, it's awesome. But you can't really be quick to write off Jared Brooks because Jared Brooks is actually 28-1 as an amateur. As crazy as that sounds, he's won 10 amateur titles.
It's ridiculous that this is like opening up the card.
A free fight night in Utica.
In terms of the talent, like this is probably overall talent. I would say the third highest, best talented fight on the whole card.
Yeah, but there's
like these two guys could be around this division for years to come, and like they're getting zero love.
If this fight happened,
reason.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. It's very obvious if you're not yelling it out your screen already. They're flyweights. I don't think there's been a single flyweight fight.
Flyweight fights are awesome.
Yeah, but flyweight fights don't end up.
Why do people hate flyweight? Like,
No. I love
watching the flyweight fights.
Of course. It's like K1 Max. It's way faster. It's way more technical. There's way more to watch. But at the same time, they're not the big guys.
No.
They don't land that big shot. This is two unbelievable amateur standouts who have had very successful pro careers so far. Brooks is 12-1. His only loss debatable to say the least. The guy could very well be undefeated in his own right. Fought in Japan, fought in Russia, very seasoned. Like I said, 12-1 and a standout, and a young guy, 25 years old. Meanwhile, Shorty Torres, same thing, dude. He's 7-0 as a pro. He's two-time world champion at Titan FC already at 7-0. He's a two-time IMAF champion as an amateur. Like, sky's the limit. Why would both of these guys be buried? Because they're flyweights, right? And they just don't get the same love. They're not getting these big promotional pushes like the other guy. But this is probably the best fight on the card, my opinion. Yeah. I like Marlon Moraes versus Jimmy Rivera. Don't get me wrong, but I think this is an evenly matchup. I think it's going to be awesome. Jose Torres is a guy that people have been talking about for a long time. So it's like, put up or shut up. You're not getting a Can in your first fight. You're getting Jared Brooks. Jared Brooks is a very tough guy. But I go back and forth this one a lot, but I got to go with Shorty Torres because, one, from what I've seen from him, he is immaculate, man. Like, if you want to keep the fight standing, he's really fast. He's got great combinations. He's super composed. He's just got a wealth of experience. As far as his wrestling goes, that's Jared Brooks' path to victory. Jared Brooks was formerly ranked 6th in the nation. I think he's out of Indiana, wrestling in the NCAA Division I level. He kind of left wrestling to pursue MMA full-time, but this is a guy that could have been an All-American D1. He's a very good wrestler. A guy that has beaten guys that have gone on to win world titles, win world championships. Sorry, national championships, not world championships. But again, his wrestling's as good as any. When he's fighting bums in the regional scene, when he's fighting guys that he's building his way up, he just takes those guys down because he's a superior athlete. But against Torres, I don't think that's options on the table. So now you got to stand with Torres. And I just don't think Brooks is super comfortable standing. Like, he wants to ply you to the ground. He wants to have his way. If that doesn't happen against Torres, and I don't think it's going to happen, this is a stand-up battle. I got to go to Shorty Torres. The one defining factor is that Jared Brooks used to fight at 115 pounds not all that long ago. He was going to Pancras taking fights at 115 because they could offer that. Comes back to the States, they don't got 115 for him, so he just takes 125. So you got a guy that's a natural 115 that moonlights as a 25er and isn't bad, don't get me wrong. Taking on a guy that's won a world title at 135 pounds and has fought good guys at 135 pounds and did not look out of place. Like, I know Jose Torres' name is Shorty, but he's actually going to have the size advantage in this fight. For that reason, I got to say the bigger man gets the job done, keeps the fight standing, pieces him up. Fight does go the distance, so I got Torres by decision. $8,700. I don't love it. I feel like there's other
Brooks
potential
almost
on this.
Feels like the safest underdog on DraftKings wise. 7,500 Jared Brooks.
Yeah,
guy who's going to
maybe.
be chasing takedowns. And what if he is able to get those takedowns?
Well, what we saw against...
Grappling always does favor the smaller or the shorter man usually.
Yeah, and, well, to your point, that
I'm
last
not saying
fight...
that I love it, but, like, when I go through this card, it's just like, Johnny Eduardo, that's a complete punt play. Like,
punt
you
play.
can play it, but, like, don't be surprised if he gets knocked out by Nathaniel Wood, because that's what Nathaniel Wood does to guys whenever you watch any of his...
Yeah.
Like, he gets into a barnstorm, and his chin holds up before yours does, and yours goes down. Gleison Tibau, it's just like... the dude may be done. His chin is gone.
Risky.
He's super slow. He doesn't look like the same guy coming off of USADA. He had a fight since then, got knocked out. Like Nick Lentz, just like, like when you go through all of these, like Jean Villante taking on Sam Alvey, like nothing, like literally nothing could happen in that fight. That's the scary thing about it. Like when you look up and down this card, like the underdogs, if you're paying up for Gregor Gillespie and Walt Harris or even Nathaniel Wood, you got to take some of these guys. And who do you really like? Like, that's been the biggest struggle for me in roster construction this week.
Yeah.
Is just like, I hate basically all these people that I roster, but you kind of have to.
Yeah. Just the thing for me personally
one.
is that he's got to rely on his grappling. His UFC debut against Eric Sheldon, a lot of people don't think he won that fight. It's a close set, and I had money on him, so I'm so glad he got the nod. But it's a split decision against Eric Sheldon. What have we learned about Eric Sheldon? Can't fucking wrestle. Cannot grapple. Wants to keep it at distance. If you try to take this guy down, you will succeed in taking this guy down. Not trustworthy. He took a very debated, close split decision over Sheldon. And then his last fight against Figueroa, again, close. He ends up losing that split decision in a fight. So maybe he lost against Sheldon, should have won against Figueroa, whatever. That's how split decisions go. Bad decision, doesn't matter. But he gets the takedowns, and Figueroa just gets right back up. He can't hold the fight down. Now, that'd be good for DraftKings if he can take Torres down, and Torres just gets back up. It's like, well, then take him down again. But I don't think that's a path to victory. I don't think he's going to consistently get those takedowns.
Fair.
And if his game plan is push this guy up against the cage and out-muscle him, he's bigger than you, and he trains with better guys than you. And fact of the matter is that I think he's going to get the job done. So I got to go with Torres. One thing I will give props to Brooks for is boxing coaches Cornelius K9 Bundridge, former world champion, IPF world champion out of Michigan. Good dude, man. Love Bundridge. I'd love to see Bundridge have a pupil that picked up a big victory in the UFC and moved on to bigger and better things. But that's where he's at. Torres has traveled all over the world for fights. He's trained all over the world. I feel like he's got a better system in place. A lifelong martial artist who knows how to wrestle, keeps his fight standing, uses his kickboxing, pieces him up. Don't sleep on his submission game. Don't sleep on his striking, because even though he's a 125er or a 135er, he's got stopping power, and that's rare for the division. And that's what kind of sets him aside from other guys competing at these weight classes, is that he's one of those few flyweights that's like, yeah, this guy will end up on a main card some point because he seems to have the goods. However, UFC debut, time to put up or shut up. Prove everybody right that's been backing you all this time. Prove everybody right that says you're a super prospect. Prove all these people right. So, I'm one of those people that's got to see a little bit more, but I think Torres gets the job done.
Usually we have a little debate on something that's going on in the news or, MMA news. We try to steer away from some of the other stuff, but we don't really have anything this week. So I think what we'll try to get people to do is send us ideas before our next recording. So for the UFC, next 225 card, which has CM Punk and all that. We'll be breaking down all of those fights and everything like that. But send us ideas for that little bridge, the little thing that me and you kind of talked about when we talk about Ronda Rousey and WrestleMania. Whatever you guys want, we'll pick a few. Tag me and Cody in on it, and we'll pick a couple. We may have an idea of something that we want to talk about at the end as well, but this week there ain't much going on. I didn't really have anything that jumped off the page. I even sat down with you. I'm like, I got nothing this week.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Either way, should be an entertaining fight. Friday night fights. It's I still like that Sunday afternoon that we just had there, just because I wasn't doing anything on Sunday afternoon anyway, so it was pretty good.
Oh, that was solid. It was
I
solid.
loved it. Except for the fights didn't really deliver, especially the main event.
Wow, the main event was
trash. But we called that. We knew that main event was going to be bad.
Yeah. Your lesson learned, though, is that the lesson learned, we already knew it. The streak continues. If you miss weight, chances are you're going to win. So whatever
that
we
did get broken, though.
Yeah, what are they, 7-1?
By McCann.
You can't spell McCann without can,
She missed
Paul.
weight, and she's
awful.
She's awful.
Awful.
She got basically dummied from pillar to post.
And the ref was like, I'll let her die to see if she can get out of this. But it's like, no, can't get out of this.
She said,
she's done.
She said to MMA fighting that, I think a win over Jillian Robertson.
I remember he's posted that.
Is going to get me a title shot against Valentina Shevchenko. One, Valentina Shevchenko does not have the title right now. So now you're just looking way too far ahead. Two,
Mystic McCann. Because I think that's what everybody thinks is
you
gonna
can't
happen.
lay an egg like that if you're talking all that type of smack. And no, let's be honest, she wasn't gonna get it anyway. Unless she went out there and she was the most ferocious fighter ever. But you miss weight plus all of that. Two, you go out there and lay an egg like that, she should be cut.
Okay.
She could get cut.
Let me ask you this.
And I would not be upset about it.
Let me ask you this. Who laid the biggest egg? Molly McCann, Eric Spicely, or Nordine Taleb? Who laid the biggest egg? Who's the big loser of the card?
Eric Spicely, Molly McCann.
I think you're right. And that's saying a lot.
You said Eric Spicely, Molly McCann, and who?
Nordine, the Machine.
We said on this as well that
he also dropped a bunch of slurs and tried to fight him at the hotel afterwards. so maybe that's a bit of a bad look.
The thing about Nordine is his opponent was good before he had this 4-year layoff.
I knew he was a one-round guy. I just needed Nordine to get out of that first round.
We kind of said that there was he was the wild card.
Yeah, you're right.
He was the wild card.
Yeah.
He beat Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is a legitimate fighter. This guy hasn't fought in forever, and I know that it was a real dicey decision against Leon Edwards, but one of those things that's just we should have seen it coming. I kind of saw it coming.
That's why I didn't go heavy
absolutely on him, nothing about it. I feel bad with that one because I had a decent read on that.
Yeah,
still
that
fucked it
one got me, but the value was so high, I avoided it because 4-1. It's like I think he's gonna win, but I don't think he's gonna. I don't like him at 4-1. But McCann was good value. It was like -170, so I was coaxed into that. And Spicely, I knew he was gonna get his ass kicked. At least I had a heavy inclination that he'd get his ass kicked. So that one's whatever. But again, there's always an apple pie shitter at some point. So let's try to avoid them this week, Paul, and pull off the big victory.
Absolutely. All right. Want to thank Cody Saftic breaking down the fights with all of me. Want to thank absolutely nobody for switching the show because I did all that shit myself. Hope you guys enjoy the fights this weekend. UFC Utica, I imagine, it's the last time they're ever going back to Utica. Unless, the fans are really, really passionate and everything. Interesting to see. I think the arena holds 5,700 people or something.
I gotta say, that's not a good barometer because these typical shows like Utica, the fans are very passionate because these are the type of shows. There's always fights breaking out in the crowd. You know it. These are the type of shows where someone's like, "You fucking suck." He's like, "No, you fucking suck." Next thing you know, there's a scrap. It's like, oh, we got another fight happening in the crowd. Especially if it's a stinker of a fight, it's like they'll just start fighting themselves.
And they don't get any sort of other sort of, they probably have a Division 6 hockey team or something. I don't know what Utica has. Anybody who's from Utica, I'm probably offending them right now, but count your lucky stars that you have a card this week. And for everybody watching and around the world and everything, and for Cody, I'd like to say goodbye and good luck.
That Mayo experience! Experience!